Good afternoon. My name is Johanna Richter. At the age of 11, I developed what is commonly known as anorexia nervosa. Up until the age of 15, I continued to struggle. I was admitted to a hospital, treatment center, and continuously relapsed. I eventually realized I didn't want to struggle any longer and changed my life for the better. Having gone through my own struggles, I became passionate about helping others overcome their own eating disorders. After conducting research, I stumbled upon attachment styles and their influence upon eating disorders, which I'll touch upon more later. But first, let me introduce you to Michelle. Michelle was 11 years old when she learned her feelings were a problem. One night, she woke up terrified from a thunderstorm. She ran to her parents' room looking for comfort. Instead, she was told she was being dramatic and needed to toughen up. The fear didn't disappear. She simply learned not to talk about it. Over time, Michelle learned other lessons. When she was upset, she was told she was overreacting. When she was anxious, she was told to stop worrying. When she expressed discomfort, she was told she was being ungrateful. Eventually, Michelle stopped sharing her emotions altogether. From the outside, she looked perfect. She earned good grades, she was popular, she seemed confident. But underneath, she carried a growing belief. If her feelings were unacceptable, maybe she was unacceptable too. Years later, when life became overwhelming, Michelle searched for a way to regain control. She found it in food. Today, I want to explore an idea that changed how I understand eating disorders. What if many eating disorders aren't fundamentally about food at all? What if they are rooted in our need for safety, belonging, and connection? Human beings are wired for connection. When we are children, our survival is entirely dependent on the people who care for us. Because of this, our brains become incredibly sensitive to our caregiver responses. When caregivers consistently respond with support, validation, and guidance, children develop what psychologists call secure attachment. Secure attachment teaches a child several powerful lessons. My feelings are manageable. My needs matter. I can handle difficult emotions. I am worthy of love even when I struggle. These beliefs build a foundation for emotional regulation, resilience, and self-worth. However, not every child receives these messages. When children's emotions are repeatedly dismissed, criticized, or ignored, they may begin to believe their feelings are burdensome. Instead of learning how to process emotions, they learn how to hide them. Many grow into adults who are constantly seeking validation, avoiding vulnerability, and tying worth to performance. And when self-worth becomes conditional, perfectionism often follows. Perfectionism is frequently misunderstood. At first glance, it looks like ambition, but underneath, perfectionism is often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. For some individuals, controlling food can become another attempt at managing those fears. An eating disorder creates the illusion of certainty in a world that feels emotionally unstable. It offers rules, structure, and a sense of control when everything else feels overwhelming. Of course, attachment is not the only factor that contributes to eating disorders. Genetics, biology, culture, trauma, and social influences all play important roles. But attachment may explain why some individuals are more vulnerable to pressures than others. Let's return to Michelle. When Michelle's father took a job in another city, her world changed overnight. She would leave her friends, her school, and everything familiar behind. When she expressed her fears to her parents, she was told she was being ungrateful, so she kept them to herself. Without healthy coping skills or support system, her anxiety intensified. The perfectionism that had already shaped much of her life expanded into her relationship with food. What began as dieting became restriction. What began as exercising became compulsion. Within months, Michelle was seriously ill. Now, let's look at a different version of Michelle. Michelle 2.0 experienced the same move, the same school, the same stress, the same uncertainty. But this time, when she shares her fears with her parents, they listen. They don't try to fix the problem, they help her navigate it. They teach her that her emotions are not dangerous and her struggles do not make her weak. As a result, Michelle still feels anxious. She still faces adversity, but she possesses something the first Michelle never developed, the confidence in her ability to cope. The challenge remained the same. What was different was the foundation beneath it. We often blame social media for the rise in eating disorders. And certainly, today's youth are exposed to pressures. Weight loss drugs are heavily discussed online. Appearance-based content dominates many social platforms. Messages about thinness and perfection are everywhere. But a question still remains. Why do some people encounter these messages and move on, while others are consumed by them? Attachment may be part of the answer. When young people are fundamentally secure in who they are better equipped to question harmful messages rather than internalize them. Researchers estimate that 13% of adolescents will develop an eating disorder before reaching the age of 20, meaning that in a room of 100 teenagers, roughly 13 will develop an eating disorder before reaching adulthood. The consequences can be devastating. Eating disorders are among the deadliest psychiatric illnesses, with anorexia nervosa having the highest mortality rate of any mental health disorder. In the United States, experts estimate that someone dies as a direct result of an eating disorder every 52 minutes. These statistics are alarming, but point us towards an important question. If eating disorders are continuing to rise despite greater awareness, perhaps we need to look beyond food, weight, and appearance alone. Perhaps we need to examine the foundations that help young people withstand these pressures in the first place. For any parent listening today, this conversation is not about blame. No parent is perfect. Children do not need parents who never make mistakes. They need parents who acknowledge mistakes, reconnect, and show that relationships can survive conflict. Sometimes this begins with small changes, listening before solving, showing curiosity instead of criticism, allowing age-appropriate autonomy, helping children understand that love is something they do not need to earn. And for some parents, this may also mean examining their own childhood experiences, because how we parent is often shaped by how we were parented. The question we should be asking is not simply why eating disorders are increasing. The deeper question is whether young people feel seen, safe, and known. At a time where eating disorders are affecting more young people than ever before, and illnesses are claiming lives at alarming rates, creating that sense of safety and belonging is more than just a parenting strategy. It's a public health priority. Perhaps the most powerful question a child can take into adulthood is, you don't need to earn belonging. You already deserve it. Thank you.